What's up, guys? It's your boys Taylor and Taylor coming back at you with episode 23 of the Empirical Scouting Podcast. Today, we're going to be kind of entering the sports gambling world, per se, diving into some of those draft props that you can currently see on some of those sports books around the globe. I know you aren't a huge gambler, Taylor. I like to usually skim over some of the props every draft weekend just to make sure if there's anything I think that's a little bit different, a little bit odd, some of the rumors that come out that sports books might not have necessarily adjusted to. It can just get, you can get some good value, especially with a lot of news coming out, a lot of smoke screens coming out that can make things a little bit different. Like we saw, I think last year with Will Levis, he got steamed all the way up to like minus odds to be like a top 10 pick, ended up going in the second round.
Can we tell that story real quick?
Yeah,
just
we
for
can tell the
context,
story, yeah.
I don't know. Like so many people, I think don't know it because I think we both listen to Stock Exchange as well.
Mhm.
And like Trevor and Connor know the story and they've mentioned it a bunch the last few weeks, but like they don't know the full story. So like that whole thing started. Some guy posted on either I want to say it was r/sportsbook or r/ betting or something like that. I think r/sportsbook. He posted and he said, "I'm currently in Vegas right now for the draft. Will Levis is telling his friends and family that he is going number 1 overall. Put the house on it." And for whatever reason, people jumped on it and were like, yes, all in. And it swung his odds so much to the point that not only did it become negative at one point, I want to say there were certain books that took it down, which usually means like it's locked and they're not taking bets anymore because they're going to lose money. That was a whirlwind of however many hours that was. Because
all off of a little Reddit post that anyone could do. There's like, trust me. I think that guy. They went back and saw that he had like called something like 3 years prior. So they're like, oh, he's legit. Like he knows what he's talking about. But like, no, all he said was, oh yeah, he's going number 1, steam it, and everyone I guess were steaming it because a lot of people lost a lot of money because sportsbooks don't take it down unless they need to.
To add a little bit more like mystique to the whole experience. Like later on, months later, on a different subreddit, different Reddit thread, different username, there was a user that ended up claiming that he was responsible for that account in that post, basically saying he was like being like weird. It was like, you need to take your life in your own hands if you want to make money. Like you can't like rely on other stuff. It was like, I needed a couple grand like really bad for like this week. So I took matters in my own hands and like made my own life or made my own odds and like claimed that he posted that to try to purposely manipulate things. Just a weird situation all around.
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't know, if that would be technically illegal because he wasn't like it's just a random person on Reddit that happened to convince people.
If it was intentional, like he was intentionally trying to do it like that, yeah, that is kind of illegal.
Okay, because
that's manipulation at that point, like
because he swung odds so crazy that he was getting plus money for like, was he going to go outside the top 15, let alone outside the first round? So he could have definitely made some serious money there.
That's like fraudulent misrepresentation, pretty much.
Yeah, I just didn't know how it worked with like Reddit and like someone who's not a professional giving advice. So,
I mean, good luck.
But yeah, we're not gonna swing any odds here. But I'm excited to go over these with you. Getting more of like that prospect mentality of diving into players' film and rating the guys yourself. I know I dabble in it. You get really in depth with the ratings and rankings. So I'm excited to see what you think of some of these odds because I'm sure some of them you're going to disagree with heavily. Now, the standard fair warning is that this isn't gambling advice. We're not professionals. We don't do this for money. We don't do this. We just talk about it for fun. So no one tail us. No one blame us.
I don't even like playing underdog.
Yeah, I want to say you don't gamble at all. So
yeah,
definitely
maybe like $10 on underdog props a year, and that's about it.
Exactly. So if you're listening, do not tail us. We're just talking about what we think looks good to us based off of our rankings and our predictions of the draft. So now that warning's out of the way, Taylor, you ready to dive into some of these props?
Let's go.
We're going to start with some of the player props, just to make it easy a little bit, I guess you could say. I'll kind of go from like the lowest draft spot all the way to the highest because it's as you get farther back, more variables can change in the draft. People trading up, people trading back. Someone randomly taking a guy in the middle of the first round that throws everything off. So a lot of things can change. So we're going to start with a little bit lower. I'm going to bring up Roma Dunze first. As we see here, his draft prop is going to be set at 8.5. So right around that Falcons Bears pick at 8 and 9. So right now he's favored to go under plus money, but even money, I should say, to get drafted by the Bears and farther back. This was one of the ones that stuck out to me because every mock draft I ever see, a lot of our mock drafts, we have Rome going at 9 to Chicago. But the sports books think that he won't even make it there. What do you think about this
problem? I'm kind of honestly more than now that I'm like really thinking about things, really thinking about how the butterfly effect of how everything might play out as one domino falls and teams react. I'm actually with the sports books here. I'm kind of thinking that you're going to see Marv and Neighbors go off the board pretty fast within the top, 5-6 picks, being conservative there. And then you got Rome, who is a lot of people put him in that tier with those two. I don't, but I have Rome kind of in a tier on his own after them personally. And I think that you're going to see some teams like maybe Chicago at 9. You could even make an argument for like the Jets at 10. Some teams a few picks beyond that, jockeying to try to get up just to secure that last guy, that last wide receiver of that tier. The last wide receiver of that tier so that they're not, having to kind of reach, quote unquote, on that second tier with Brian Thomas and A.D. Mitchell and such. So there's rumors out there, there's mumblings that the Falcons are interested in moving back a little bit to from 8 to draft an edge rusher. Odunze at 8 sounds like it, could be something that easily hits to me.
Yeah, and that's what I think they're thinking. As a line maker making this odds, you're thinking that a team's gonna be like, oh crap, I need that last wide receiver in that tier range. I know for us, Malik and Marvin Harrison are a tier above Rome, but Rome's kind of in that second tier by himself. It's more like a 1B to a lot of people, and it's gonna create a panic if, assuming both those go off by pick 5, pick 6. That's some team that's not too far behind 8, 9, 10 might end up wanting to trade up to draft them. So I haven't actually thought about that scenario, a team trading up for Rome, and that's certainly possible because I think he's gone by 9. 100%.
I mean, if he gets past Tennessee at 7, because like Tennessee's obviously probably going to zero in on Joe Alt if he gets there. But hypothetically, say Joe Alt's off the board and Tennessee passes on Rome, like I do think you're going to see like Chicago try to move up one spot. The Jets try to do it. You could see Denver maybe try to do something if they're. I mean, like Denver depends on what they're trying to do with their quarterback situation, obviously. But even beyond that, like New Orleans could use some talent out there, like Jacksonville, like even Cincinnati. So Pittsburgh, I mean, that's a big trade up for Pittsburgh, but still, like there's teams out there that need the talent, and we see it every year where there's a run that kind of will happen, and teams will scramble and really jockey to try to get that last player of the tier before, it really falls off.
Yeah, and to that point, a lot of recent years with some really, really good wide receiver classes, there's been a lot of other needs, I should say. Like there was other needs at, offensive tackle, there's other needs at edge, there's other needs at quarterback. But this draft, it seems like wide receiver is a more prominent need for a lot of these teams, which is why we're going to see most likely Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors off in the top 5, top 6 picks. So it's an angle I haven't thought about. So I can't see it because at first I'm thinking like, oh, I can get like even money for Rome to go to Chicago. Like, yes, that's the pick I think is going to happen. But now that you put that, that trade up possibility, especially with Atlanta and all those rumors that we've been hearing here, about us trading back, like I've always thought quarterback, but it could
Yeah.
easily be for Rome.
Yeah, I mean, let's just contextualize too the last few years of drafts for wide receivers, where last year Jason, Johnson, Flowers, Addison went all in a row. Like
Yeah.
they literally went 21 through 23 for picks. Then Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jamison Williams, those four all went within from 8 to 12, and then beyond that, Jahan Dotson, Burks went from at 16 and 18 as well. You go back to a few years ago, Ruggs 12, Judy 15, CD 17, Rager 21, Jefferson 22, Ayuk at 25. These guys go in bunches because the teams and all those classes had teams moving up for those receivers. So when the teams know or feel that there's a clear tier drop off, they will jockey for that, especially with wide receivers in today's age of the NFL.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely a position that is a lot more of a coin flip than I initially thought. So I do like that. We will actually be following the sportsbook there, and hopefully, our benefit, we are able to trade back to 10, 11, 12, get some extra draft capital, and they let the team get roamed.
I mean, if you flip 8 to 11 and pick up like an extra third,
yeah. So like
it's a win-win.
Yeah,
even a fourth. Like you're gonna get from 8 to 11. Atlanta would end up getting a player that they want, anyways.
Yeah,
to be honest,
100% agree. So we'll move on to our next player I wanted to bring up. This is another one that I thought the odds are a little bit different than what I personally think. Let's see if I can find it. There he is. We're going to talk about Brock Bowers, a tight end from the University of Georgia. We see that right now. Sportsbooks have he's heavily favored to go under 12.5. So that means by Denver's pick, he would be off the board. However, in our mock drafts and a lot of our talks and a lot of recent mock drafts I've been seeing, he kind of slides down the board a little bit. I think, and you let me know what you're thinking when you see these odds. There's just odds that popped out to me because, I mean, we always pencil him in for Indianapolis, just it'd be the fun pick, but he's always there available for that, which would definitely be after the 12th pick. So to me, I don't see Denver or Minnesota really drafting him. They could, definitely not Minnesota, but Denver, I guess, could. But I think what sportsbooks are really thinking here, it's the only rumor that I've been seeing is that the New York Jets are eyeing Brock Bowers. What are you looking at when you see these kind of odds?
I think the Jets are definitely, but I think it's I think there's more than that, and I think I'm in on this line as well, sorry, I'm looking.
It's 12.5. Yeah, you're right. It's right here.
So okay, so he's favored to go 12 and under.
Yeah,
I'm with the sportsbooks. I'm with
really?
the sportsbooks here. I would not bet on him going past 13. And here's why. I think I'm very much in on the rumors of the Chargers trading back and, Minnesota or Denver trading up. So my initial gut instinct right now is we could definitely see, and there's rumors now that Arizona and New England are open for business. Who knows how that really will turn out. I think New England will stick. I have a hard time believing Arizona doesn't, but I definitely think the Chargers will move back, and I see it playing out almost like Minnesota flips 11 and I think 23 it is for 5. You get the Chargers at 5. It's either going to be the Jets at 10, Chargers at 11, or the rumor of Indy wanting to move up for Bowers. Maybe Indy moves up to 12 and Denver kind of takes a, move back if they can't get a quarterback they want. So then you get potentially 3 teams in a row that could take him. And I definitely could see the Chargers taking Bowers. I mean, that the talent there for the receiving core is not that great right now. And you move back, you get a receiver in Bowers, and then you'll have Minnesota's pick in the late first round to pick up an offensive lineman or something like that. Yeah. So that's my thought process.
That would be passing on Blake Neighbors though, which would be hard to do. But as
but that's
my new favorite source. Yeah, they need a little more.
Your new favorite source is what, AB?
Yeah, he's saying that Michael Thomas will be signing there in Los Angeles. So if he does sign there, then I could definitely see them passing on a Malik Neighbors, getting a Brock Bowers later on, and getting that extra draft capital. I mean, you're getting an extra first round pick for a team and a new head coach that they haven't made the playoffs. They struggled a lot. They still have their franchise quarterbacks. So they don't necessarily need to trade up for a quarterback, so they have the room to trade back. They just they restructured and re-signed Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, so they have staples on both sides of the ball. And in this case, trade back, get an extra first round pick. You're getting a Brock Bowers type of tight end that a dangerous offensive weapon. You pair him up with Justin Herbert, and then you come back in late first round. You draft, I don't know, a defensive position. I'm assuming
you could grab a right tackle, you could grab a corner,
yeah,
grab a linebacker, grab a defensive player. There's a lot you can do there. I can't wait to see Michael Thomas play about 100 snaps for them and then stop. But I mean, in reality, though, they signed Disley and Hurst, and I think Disley's primarily a inline guy. Hurst has that flexibility sort of, but I think you add number one, Bowers is a level above those guys at this point. And then Bowers, we saw it at Georgia plenty where he splits out and is in the slot. So you can play Bowers out in the slot like almost full time and be fine and get away with it almost. So even with Michael Thomas, like, he primarily is a slot guy as well. I don't think I would rely on his slants too much to deter me from having Bowers out there.
Yeah, no, I can see it. So we'll roll with sportsbooks on this one, even though at first glance I'm like top 12, but the way you
am I blowing up your
No, I'm not taking any of these. These aren't ones I would actually consider taking. I like for the draft, I like taking more long shot ones because so many things can happen in the draft that I've learned that one pick in the first round could change the next 10 picks. One trade that we didn't see. What was it? We'll get. I'm actually going to get into it a little bit later too. But when Tennessee traded AJ Brown, or when Amari Cooper was traded to Cleveland from Dallas, like those little trades, all of a sudden, that we're going to get into that. When I say, but yeah, one little thing can adjust the entire draft. So I just like doing longer shots. I don't like doing like these kind of smaller. Like I'm talking like plus 3, 4, 500, plus 1,000. These are for fun. I just do it for fun, just to see if I can predict something correct. But we're gonna move over to our next prospects. We're gonna talk about two of them. The obvious ones, when you see on the screen, is gonna be Bo Nix. We'll also talk about Michael Penix Jr. We're gonna talk about them together as a pair. If we actually think the team's gonna trade up, because right now what I'm seeing here on this is Bo Nix is favored heavily to not get drafted in the first round, over 32.5. So he's not going to be a first round pick. However, I scroll down to Michael Penix Jr., if I could find him right here. He is not as heavily, but he's heavily favored to get drafted in the first round. So right now, what DraftKings is telling us is, Bo Nix is a second round pick, most likely to Denver. I'm pretty sure if I looked at his odds, I think last time I saw him, they're like minus 180 to get drafted by Denver. Like specifically, and that's just horrible. Do not bet that ever, because that is you're predicting one player to one team, and that's really, really extremely hard. But then I see Michael Penix Jr., and we talked about a little bit before we started recording, and like I don't see him as a first round quarterback. You don't see him as a first round quarterback. I don't really see much hype about him being a first round quarterback. What do you think? Do you think that's just basically you're saying a team's gonna like Lamar Jackson him? And they're just going to jump back into late first. I guess that was a bad example, but I'm trying to think of a team that jumped back, like Johnny Manziel, for instance. Like a team that jumps back into
Baltimore did jump back up into late first for Lamar.
It was late first. For some reason, I thought it was 15 when I started talking.
He was 32.
Yeah, he was 32. So a team do that where they jump back into the late first round and they get him for that fifth year option. And if they do that, do you think it would be Michael Penix over Bo Nix?
So number one. No, I think I would say Bo Nix has a higher shot at going in the first round than Penix. I don't think either one will go in the first. I think So I know you said you haven't necessarily seen any of the hype. I've seen a little bit of the murmurs coming out of like, oh, the Raiders may just stay put and take Penix at like 12 or whatever, or
Mhm.
13, and it's like that. There's been a lot of hype since the pro day for him coming up, and I have said this since it happened, since these talks have happened. He's that guy for me that every year there's one quarterback that gets that late hype, that late post combine push, and it's all smoke screens. It was Will Levis last year, and the year before that, I have to go look it up real quick. Malik Willis was
Malik Willis.
one.
Yep,
Um, but even like beyond Malik Willis, like I want to say like that class was like I think Desmond Ritter had some first round hype at one point, like
he
post
did.
combine. Um, you know, Jalen Hurts was getting first round hype at some points.
Yeah,
I mean, in retrospect, maybe, but like I still
yeah.
don't think so that he should have even I wouldn't in that retrospect still. Which may be pretty controversial to say, but just every year there's one quarterback that's designated the smokescreen hype guy to try to push people up and or push people down the board, sorry, and get other teams kind of like hyped up and scared. And I think it's just panic this year. I think people are going to be. I think we're going to see a lot of social media like, how is this guy still the best player on the board? Like he's still available, and it's going to be like near the end of round two before like I could see him not even being a day two pick, truthfully. Like, if we're being
I mean,
real.
he's going. I can't see him getting past like halfway through the second round. Personally, not saying I personally would. Like, if Falcons did it, I'd be kind of upset. But I just don't see him lasting that long. Maybe
So,
okay. I'll say he won't make it to round three. I'm gonna say it that way.
can you go back to that first quarterback
Yeah.
taken
Well, yeah.
thing real
So
quick?
yeah, I'll do that in a second. I just wanted to, it was the other part of this that I wanted to bring up was the total quarterbacks in the first round. Obviously, heavily juiced to have five, at least five, but five in the
So
first
that's
round.
why I'm trying to think of all the
Yeah.
quarterbacks real quick. That
Okay. Yep. I'll go back to the quarterbacks right here. First quarterback selected, same thing.
okay.
So
So
we know Caleb's gone. We know Jaden Daniels
I
is
think the
gone. We know
top
Drake May
four.
is gone.
Yeah,
We pretty much know JJ McCarthy's going. So you're basically
JJ
battling. You're
JJ's
basically
going top
saying,
10, bud.
I know. But you're basically saying Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or somehow Spencer Rattler or Sam Hartman. I guess the same odds, so I can't leave him out. He's going to get drafted in the first round. I
That's
personally
ridiculous.
don't. Yeah, I don't see like as a line. Looking at this as a lines maker, I have Bo Nix heavily favored to go outside the first round. So he's pretty much crossed off the list. I don't even think they list Spencer Rattler or Sam Hartman, so they're crossed off the list. So you're looking at Michael Penix. So realistically, if you think five quarterbacks are getting drafted in the first round, you just go bet Michael Penix under at minus 130 instead of the minus 200 that we saw in the over 4.5 in the previous screen. And if you think the opposite, you instead of drafting or instead of picking Michael Penix to go outside the first round at plus 100, you hit the under 4.5 at like plus 180. So it's like the lines are very conflicting to me, and it's just I don't see how it makes sense. So it's really you bet either that Michael Penix is going to be in the first round, or you bet that there's going to be under four quarterbacks. Does that make
Is
sense to
how
you? Like that's what I'm
Yeah,
seeing.
yeah. I'm curious as to how far down that goes. Like we see first
For the
QB
second,
taken, for
it goes to
second.
the third. Third,
Okay, it goes to third. Because
yeah.
I was
And
gonna say
obviously odds
though.
shift because like JJ isn't going to be a third quarter, or it would be, I guess. I forgot what I was looking at. Oh, like Jaden Daniels and Drake May are rumored to be like the second and third, so that's why they're the highest. And JJ's kind of in that
Yeah.
tier behind them. That's going to be definitely drafted in the fourth, so that's why the odds are like
So
that.
if it went farther, my spicy take was gonna be for the, I guess, fifth quarterback taken would be Spencer Rattler. I think Spencer
Oh,
Rattler.
really? He's
I
getting a
think
lot
I
of hype.
I think he will be the fifth quarterback taken. Truthfully, I really don't think it's going to be Penix,
Yeah.
and I think it would be a toss up between Nix and Rattler. And I think I could definitely see Nix being like a high round two pick, but I think Rattler goes before Penix, truthfully.
Interesting.
And if he doesn't,
That would be
then
crazy.
I may just be blind to what I'm watching on film. But then
There's a
again,
lot of
like, I mean, then again, Jaden Daniels is gonna be a top 5 pick, and
you don't
another
see
one.
that.
I guess I'm blind. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't think
Everyone
I'm the only one that doesn't see it anymore. Like, it seems like there's
no.
pretty substantial movement
I
now,
saw.
especially
I
after.
literally. Yeah, I was gonna say I literally saw like a tweet probably like an hour ago saying that lines are now moving back towards Drake May to be drafted second overall. I mean, we can check it right here.
Shout
Second
out Ben
quarterback.
Solak for
Yeah, I
moving
mean,
those
but
lines.
earlier it was like minus 150 or higher. Yep, it just moved right in front of us to 120, 150 and 125. And now they're both minus money right in real time. So you see the odds are shifting right back to Drake May. So they're still jockeying for that second and third positions. The last kind of player ones I wanted to look at is going to go back to. It's going to be focused on the wide receiver position. Need to nope this one. Basically, calling our shot on who's going to get drafted in the first round of the wide receivers is basically what I want to get at, because I think you could pick two guys at plus money and make a profit. However, if you miss, then you miss big. We're basically looking at that. Say San Francisco, if they end up trading Brandon Ayuk, which AB also has rumored to say that they are. Obviously, Baltimore always needs a wide receiver. Buffalo, especially. So some of these teams definitely need wide receivers. And there's some decent receivers that could be available that could sneak into that late round one. So I'm talking about Ladd McConkey plus 145. Trevor Clinton plus 237, Xavier Legette plus 330. Jalen Polk's getting some random hype. At least today, I saw like 4 different tweets about him. So I don't know if that was just coincidence or not, but plus 330 here, and even down to like a Keelan Coleman at plus 475. So obviously, it's not going to be the big three. It's not even going to be the next like 2 or 3 with like A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and Brian Thomas Jr. But are you thinking another wide receiver is going to get drafted outside of that, like big, I should say, big 6, big 7?
I'm trying to think this through. So I think we get, Neighbors, Marv, Rome.
Yep.
Those are easy.
Yep.
And then it
Brian Thomas.
becomes Brian Thomas. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
locked in at this point.
And
I
Xavier
think.
locked in.
You think who?
I mean,
Worthy?
Xavier Worthy is locked in the first round.
Oh. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, but I wouldn't be shocked, but I don't know if I would feel comfortable saying locked in. But I do think like that is, I do think that's fair to like believe that for sure.
So since he's not necessarily locked in, I mean, we don't have to go into the whole A.D. Mitchell stuff that's been coming out recently, especially about his
I think
blood sugar.
I think AB is going to get taken late first for sure.
That's
actually.
So I mean, he's my guy. Like he would be my receiver. But there's just a lot of stuff that's coming out. You have the red flags on him. Other people seem to have the red flags on him as well, or at least kind of like, I shouldn't say like downgrading him in different senses, but I've been seeing a lot of negativity towards him. I personally just don't see it. I think he's going to be drafted in the first round. But even if we locked him in, so that's going to be what, 5 or 6 locked in. How many wide receivers do you think are going to go in this first round? Because I'm thinking there's going to be at least 7. And real quickly, we'll look that up. We'll go into wide receivers. I think there's actually a prop for that, if I'm not mistaken, of how many wide receivers will get drafted, if I can find it. But I want to hear your thoughts. So here's the list of the wide receivers right here to make it easier on us. Marvin Harrison, Malik Davis, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., all locked in. We would say Mitchell's locked in, so that's going to be 5 wide receivers right there. If you don't think Xavier Worthy is locked in, it could be beneficial to take a chance on like an Xavier Legette or Ladd McConkey, for instance, in this situation. Now Malachi Corley, I think, might be your long shot play here. Not as first wide receiver, but I'm talking about to be drafted in the first round.
Oh no, I mean, I know. Yes, you're right. I do love Corley for like personal reasons, but I don't think I would bet on him being drafted in the first. And like Ladd is the same way. Like I like Ladd a lot. Like personally watching him, but I don't think that's the type of player a team's gonna take in the first. If that makes sense, just because like there's no. He's very, very good. He's going to be a very solid player, but it's not like that like shiny upside type of play. You know what I mean? Yeah. I could see Legette. Legette would be the guy I would place a bet on beyond like the ones we've named plus Worthy and such.
Yeah.
Just because I think there is some of that shiny toy upside, really athletic player type of thing there, um,
Yeah.
that teams will covet almost. And
Yeah.
I like this. So the whole thing with AD right now is I have my own red flags that I've seen from the film, but that is not. I don't know anything about his character beyond um, what's just been reported. I want to say like the stuff that's coming out right now, it to me it feels like smoke screens to tank him and get him to fall more than legitimate concerns. And I know that sounds like almost tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but like it legitimately happens.
Yeah.
Minnesota like notoriously did it with Adrian Peterson about the knee injury stuff. I'm want to say so. It's like it does happen,
Yeah.
but that's where I'm at right now with all that stuff
Yeah,
coming
I can
out.
see it. And I'm looking. I wanted to bring up the total wide receivers selected right here. So they're heavily thinking there's only 6 receivers. So you really, if we do our calculations right, you're basically betting that Xavier Worthy is not going to be a first round wide receiver. If you're betting on one person, now obviously more than six could actually get drafted and at plus money. But sports books they pay people millions of dollars to be able to set these lines, and they make money. So they want you to take less money and lose. So if you're following what they're setting, the guidelines for you, if only 6 receivers are getting it taken, you're basically betting against Xavier Worthy or AD Mitchell. And that if you're going to do that, I would want a longer odds. And I'm pretty sure the only person that's above 200 and he's at like 330 is Xavier Leggett. That would really be worth putting your money on if you were to bet that, because like Lad McConkey at 145 isn't really, you know, I love Lad, but I also wouldn't draft him in the first round. I don't think Troy is a first rounder. I think that's a horrible line. And neither is Jalen Polk. So Xavier Leggett would be the next, thought after one. Malachi Corley at 650 could be fun though. It could be fun.
No, like I like that. I like a lot
Yeah,
in terms of just like because I like Malachi
yeah,
Corley, but I'm just afraid that there's I feel like there's no steam for it, if that makes sense. Like I feel like there's got to be some kind of smoke for me to buy in that this guy's going to be a first
yeah.
rounder, unless it's a total off the wall thing, which is always possible.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I mean it's definitely
um,
possible, but I don't.
because I mean,
I
like Bruce Irvin and Travis Frederick, those kind of things do happen. But right now,
I mean, if I was to do this, I'd probably put like, $5 on Xavier to get $5 of Malachi Corley and hope, San Francisco or Kansas City wants to have some fun. That's all I would be doing.
well, aside from the receivers,
Yeah.
what stands out to me here is Michael Hall Jr.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your boy.
Marshawn Nealon, not necessarily because I think Marshawn Nealon's anything special, but like because there's other people that are kind of saying he may
Mm-hmm.
be taken high. If you're putting any money on Roger Rosengarten being taken in the first round, you have a serious problem, and I advise you to seek help.
Can I tell you, I
Um,
actually don't even know who that is. That's crazy
he
that you
is
said.
Washington's right tackle from this past season, I want to
Oh, okay.
say.
No, you're right. Yeah, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
I don't. Yeah, if you're putting any money on that guy being a first round pick,
Yeah.
please seek help. Um, Probably pretty similar sentiment if you're putting money on Jalen Wright being a first rounder
Yeah.
too. Um,
Yeah.
I could at
Any
least
any of
like
the any of the running backs. I was gonna get into it, but I don't think I'm gonna skip it over. There's a prop that's like the first running back selected, and it's really just a crapshoot. The heavily favorites is Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson, and then it kind of drops off to Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, Marshawn Lloyd, etc. Who do you think is the first? I don't want to get into it, but who do you think is the first running back taken? Because it's all a crapshoot.
I would go with either Brooks or Wright probably. I
Okay,
don't think it's
Trey Benson.
I don't know. Benson like has like some great stuff with him that comes with his profile, but I
Yeah,
think there's also enough there to like kind of make me think
just
like
so you see the odds right there.
yeah,
I
like
think
I would go with
Braylon Allen at plus
Brooks.
3,000 is kind of wild though. Not
I think
because
it's
just because of how
I think
how
it's
we
a
thought it
testament to,
was.
like, how his play
Yeah.
has been,
Mhm.
Blake Corum at plus 450, like, that's not like, that's a kind
That's
of a
one I was waiting for.
it's like, Blake Corum, yeah, he's not like this, super uber running back athlete prospect, but, like, the dude is a solid running back prospect that is, like, a
And
good football
also
player. Like,
also if like say the Chargers do trade back, instead of getting the extra first, they get a second, then they have multiple day two picks. You know, Jim Harbaugh could go out and go get his boy. That's not out of
I'm
the realm
trying
of
to think
possibility.
I'm trying to think of, like, the last running back that was, like, just kinda like that, like, he just a solid football player, but, like, I mean, Clyde
Yeah,
was the first running back taken in his class, like, in a good
he was just
class, and,
overall. Yeah,
Clyde wasn't like a, stud Braylon Allen type of,
yeah.
looking type of guy, or like a, Chris McCaffrey
I
type or anything
mean,
like that. He's
Sony
just an all around
Michelle,
good player.
Sony Michelle. I mean,
Sonny
it's a
was
little bit
fast at
different,
least
but
though, but
he was fast, but he wasn't overly
and
I
Blake
mean, he
Corum's
was
not
outshined
slow.
by Chubb. Yeah, yeah, but he's not Sonny Michelle.
Blake,
But I want
yeah.
to get into a different one. It's kind of gonna this is gonna be a quick one, but I want to center it's gonna be centered around pretty much the Falcons. Either what we do or who we draft. It's gonna be first defensive player selected. Obviously it's favored for Dallas Turner. We see all the mock drafts, we hear all our friends, we're in SEC country, everyone wants Dallas Turner. Um, Latu, obviously, a lot of people, I'd say tape watchers, they love him. This is their guy. They think he's a stud. It's just the heavy red flags of the medicals. And then your boy, Jared Verse, who I absolutely love, and I think he should be a lot closer to Dallas Turner than these numbers suggest as well. But we don't really hear about that. Now, it could be because that's who they're targeting, or we just haven't heard anyone really talking about Jared Verse down here in Atlanta. So I did those are gonna be three edge, but the two that I kind of wanted to, or I guess three, I should say, is also mentioned is we saw this team today about Byron Murphy, how he could be selected, in eighth pick by us. And, do I think that's going to happen? I don't, but you never know. And then the cornerbacks, Terry Arnold and Quinion Mitchell. Obviously, they're favoring Terry Arnold here, another SEC country guy, but Quinion Mitchell is the cornerback one to a lot of people. So if you're looking at this and you're dissecting it, like, is there any bet that you'd make as a long shot? Are you just going to eat the juice with Dallas Turner? Obviously, you're just going to skip it. I know you personally, though, probably like Jerry Verse, but do you actually think that we would draft him at 8 or at 9, 10, 11, or 12 if we do trade back, assuming no one else is taking a defensive player before us? Because if we do trade back, it might not be our pick that is the first defensive player drafted.
Um, so I don't know the exact math behind this. I'm not. I want to say like this is a strategy that gamblers use, but I don't know for a fact. You may be able to tell me if I'm wrong. Almost like roulette, where you kind of put a little bit on multiple numbers, but you know, you're not. You kind of spread it out. You spread it instead of going all in on one thing for the numbers on roulette. That's how I'm kind of looking at this. Where I would be willing to throw money here and there on Latu through Mitchell, and I think that you're gonna hit. And you obviously gotta do the math and work it out to where
Yeah,
like you would come out green. But I think like I feel like that's almost a guarantee because I don't think Turner's gonna be the first player taken here, and
interesting.
I could see it being Latu if the talk of like teams being comfortable with his medicals is legitimate. But other than that, like Terrion Arnold or Quinion are the two things that like pop out to me because
Yeah.
it just depends on what Atlanta does for sure. But especially if we move back or something, I don't know. But we'll just talking about the Byron Murphy thing. Like I get like Byron Murphy's really talented, and he even gave me Grady Jarrett vibes. But I don't know if it really makes sense for like what Atlanta has personnel
Are we
wise right
also
now.
we're also running a 3-4 now, right?
Well,
And I know you
yeah,
could
but
probably play it as like what a
yeah,
five,
yeah,
but
he can,
yeah,
but it's like we have players at his like we have literally like players across the front three there already that are like tied up to like a couple you know decently big contracts. Just not to say like you don't build for the future at all, but it's like it just doesn't make sense to me when like we don't have an edge presence at all.
Yeah. It
I did like it.
also, yeah, it also doesn't coincide with what I personally have reiterated to over and over again. What I think the philosophy is for the next 2 years is kind of go all in, and I don't think going all in to try to win, within the next years. Now, whether we can or not, that's still have Patrick Mahomes and a lot of other good teams above us. But if you're trying to win now, like I don't think you're drafting a Byron Murphy necessarily. I think you would take one of those edges, or if you do trade back, or something happens, and I mean having a Terry Arnold or Quinion Mitchell paired up with AJ Terrell would be pretty good because I think our defensive line isn't as bad as like we still need an edge badly, but it
That
wasn't
is
that bad.
that is the most consistent draft rumor I have heard since like near the end of like the actual NFL season. So like November, December time range. That Atlanta's front office is looking for a running mate to play on the opposite side of AJ Terrell long term.
Yeah,
That is the most consistent thing that I've heard for months for any draft for any franchise. Beyond like the obvious like, the Patriots will need a quarterback and the
Caleb
so
Williams
on.
going to Chicago.
Yeah, like but and Marvin going to Arizona.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's where I'm kind of at. Is like I think you could easily see Atlanta like flip flop back to an 11 or 12 or something like that. Like we were talking for someone wanting to move up for Rome,
yeah,
and then just taking taking Quinion or Terry on in the teens where they're more comfortable with the value than
yeah,
taking one of them at 8.
yeah.
Um,
And the
yeah,
counter to that is if the team did trade up and jump Chicago for Rome, then Chicago might be drafting a defensive player. And in that sense, it definitely. I mean, they got Sweat, but it still could be Dallas Turner. So that could throw off your game plan. I have it written down here that Atlanta, just for reference, our odds per position were minus 210 for a defensive lineman, and then cornerback plus 190, then wide receiver plus 1,000, and offensive lineman plus 1,300. So realistically, if you're trying to bet this exact prop, and it's all based around basically Atlanta, because that's going to be the first defensive spot available. If you truly think a team would jump up to Chicago, then it might be better to go and put some money on cornerback at plus 190 for Atlanta specifically. It's not a great of the odds, but you're eliminating, jumping up to Chicago, just taking Dallas Turner and ruining all your bets. Or if you don't think that's going to happen and we're going to stand put, then the spreading the board thing might be a better idea, and just kind of like limiting your unit size, I guess you could call it, per bet, and obviously higher higher money on like Latu and Verse, and then going down from there with Byron Murphy, Terry Arnold, and Quinion Mitchell.
honestly, looking at it, like Byron Murphy to the Bears is kind of an interesting like thought prospect. I don't think he fits necessarily how Eberflus likes to run his like defensive tackles or interior defensive linemen,
Yeah.
but
Just
Byron Murphy to the
well, just
Bears
for
at 9
reference,
would be interesting.
Byron Murphy to get drafted top 10 is plus 550. At least it was before we started. So I can look it up, but we're not going to worry about that. But he's plus 550. So if that was a spot, it could be a solid. 550 is a lot. So you put $10, you win $5 easily.
I still really think that Latu or Verse will be the first edge off the board, truthfully.
We can see it. I mean, we've
In my
seen
gut.
weird things. Yeah, we've seen weird things in the past where people are just not talked about, and then all of a sudden they're drafted, and you're like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" But it's like they always were there.
If Latu's medicals are truly okay, like checking out everything, and like they're not worried about like the future of his career beyond just like a freak accident happening, I can't I can't justify or reconcile the fact that he would not be the first edge taken.
Yeah,
He's truly
a lot
like
of people love it. Yeah.
well on like even just watching him casually, watching highlights, watching actual film, watching the games live, advanced statistics like win rates and such, like there's no real argument that can be made against him anymore after the combine because his athletic test like and the whole thing was he may not be that athletic And he is pretty damn athletic at the end of the day. Like, he's far and away the best edge if his medicals are okay.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Because I mean, I'm down for all three of them for Atlanta personally, but I do I have that worry that like Latu. I'm not saying it's gonna be TJ Watt, but that TJ Watt situation where you draft the wrong edge, and we're looking back at it, and we're like, and no, I don't think it's gonna end up as bad as we ended up, but I'm saying like you could have gotten the better player, but we passed on him. That's all I'll say.
I think I think the thing with that though is the way I would feel about that is if we took Turner and then Latu went right after us. That would
Okay,
be
yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of what. Yeah,
that's how I
that
would think of it, because I always felt like that
mhm.
Watt was a cleaner prospect. Like, he was gonna have more technically sound. He was me farther along
Yeah,
technically than Tack McKinley was, because look at
yeah,
who his brother and family is.
yeah. That
Yeah,
was that was that was an interesting one. I remember when we traded up. I think I was with Cody and like a few other of our friends, and we all were like, "Oh crap, we traded up. Who are we gonna get?" And then all of a sudden, we're like, "Who? Who's this UCLA edge rusher? I haven't even heard of him." So we're not gonna bring down bad memories. So also moving on, final part of this and just kind of go over some of the teams. Um, they kind of broke it down by position, like I was kind of alluding to with Atlanta. So I'll bring up some of the teams. First ones I want to do is Baltimore and Cincinnati, kind of at the same time, because they're very similar teams, very similar odds, as you can see on here with a couple flip flopping, but they're both heavily projected to get an offensive lineman. They definitely both need them. They definitely both can. However, Baltimore kind of does this thing where they just take best available a lot. Whoever falls to them, that happens, quite often. It's kind of like a theme of NFL drafts in the last 20 years. So I can see a few other positions, and we always talk about that round one wide receiver that they always love and they always need. They still need a wide receiver. So at plus 700, it's not the worst look. And also with Cincinnati, same idea. They always need an offensive lineman. We know that. We've seen that. They did kind of supplement it a little bit in free agency. I don't necessarily think they would go edge in this situation. They kind of have a couple decent edges there, but I'm looking more at that wide receiver and tight end spots because I mean Tyler Boyd is rumored again. AB is rumored to be signing with Pittsburgh, I believe, if I remember right. But he's not rumored to be resigning with the Bengals. There's T. Higgins they still haven't talked to. So right now they have two wide receivers, but I don't necessarily think T. Higgins is going to be there this year, let alone if he is past that. So round one, wide receiver might not be the worst option. And then, like we've also talked about, it's kind of a fun option. I don't necessarily, neither one of us necessarily think he's going to get there, but they could be a candidate to trade up for Brock Bowers.
yeah.
So I'll let you dissect those two teams.
It's so hard to really do this for like this far back because it's such a butterfly effect type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I was really putting money on things right now, I think I would probably put money on. I mean, corner and wide receiver for Baltimore is like my initial gut instincts, just because. Like, I don't think there's gonna be an offensive lineman that gets to them that's necessarily like worth their pick with like
It'd be
the
a slight
talent they
reach.
kind of already there. Well, yeah, like I mean, they maybe like a Tyler Guyton type or something like
That's what I
that,
was thinking.
but I don't know. I kind of would lean. I still lean wide receiver, like, but it's just so. Would they really do that after
Again.
Bateman, Flowers,
Yeah.
Hollywood, like? But wide receiver is just like where I really lean, especially knowing the state of like the roster right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I'm with you. I mean, I think
linebacker.
that would be a good one to also spray, between defensive line, cornerback, and wide receiver. And because if like a Latu or a Verse does end up falling all the way down there, for whatever reason, which I don't know why they would, I don't think they would hesitate to draft them. So that's basically what you're kind of hedging against is if one of those guys happen to fall all the way down to them, you're also thinking they're going to pass on them. And I think history shows that they don't pass on those kind of guys that fall. And there's always someone that falls to them that's that highly rated.
Yeah. So my thing with Cincinnati though is I don't like wide receivers the easy thought.
Mm,
And I think we all kind of think, offensive tackle for them. But
yep,
offensive tackle is like they just brought in Trent Brown,
yep,
which I mean, I'm like I said last time we did a mock, like I don't necessarily want to
mhm,
rely on Trent Brown, but I mean, you could theoretically just kind of think that he's going to be your guy. Um, the edge is pretty high for them, but here's the thing with Cincinnati and edge, like they just took Miles Murphy,
yep,
and then on top of that, like they still have Henderson, Hubbard. They took Cam Sample recently. They have Osai. So it's like they have a lot of edges there that like
yep,
they're kind of making a backlog if they take another one. Because at some point you gotta be able to get these guys on the field to develop more than just like drafting them and sitting them for years.
yep,
Um, Corner's the one that really sticks out to me though, because it's like DJ Turner and Cam Taylor Britt, and like that's it for their corner room. I feel like, and like yeah, they're talented guys, but at the same time, like, are those guys number one corners yet, or do you think they're going to be number one corners? Like, I liked DJ Turner coming out last year. I don't know if I'm ready to say like I would rely on him as my top two as a top two corner. Um, and like the way things are going with the corner stocks is like Kool-Aid could easily be there. Dejean's interesting for all of this because if you're thinking he's getting taken by either one of these teams, which is totally possible,
yeah.
is he being taken as a corner or a safety?
Oh yeah, that's
Which
the other thing.
and that's not even something you can bet on with this because
You can't bet that, but you keep going. Let me find something though.
I was gonna say like what you may be looking at what he's like listed under for the odds like safety or corner or something, but here's the thing: if even if like he's listed under all the corner odds and not on any of the safety props,
Mm-hmm.
if they get up there on draft night and say Cooper DeJean safety Iowa, he's a safety. Like it just blows it all up. Hopefully like
So this is
sportsbook would refund it maybe, but
I doubt it. This is the thing. Okay, so you're looking at quarterbacks total, heavily favored to be under 6, so 5 or less. I don't even think there's gonna be 5. Depending on Cooper. We know there's gonna be at least 3, possibly 4. I don't even think 5. So obviously, I think they're right with this. I would not touch 6. Even though quarterbacks do kind of get pushed up every now and then. So I personally think there's gonna be 5 max. However, if you think that Cooper DeJean could be drafted as a safety, which I don't think he should be, but if he is, you could bet one safety to be selected in the first round at plus 450. Because
yeah.
there's no other safety that's really going to get drafted in the first round. And because those guys, that's another position that kind of gets moved down.
I mean,
Draft
Tyler
boards,
Newman's
day
got a
2.
little bit of hype for the late first, but
Yeah,
yeah, I would. But even then, though, that goes more towards your point of why not put a little bit into that
yeah. But
because
if you think that they could be drafting him to be a safety, you could plus 450 right there. That if one of these teams late in the first round or even mid, I mean, because I think Cooper could even go in this range of Cincinnati as 18, and if they draft him as a safety, or if they just announce him as a safety, over one at plus 450 is pretty good odds.
no, I would truly bet on that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, my 750 to not happen. So obviously, if it misses, you can't get mad because it's not supposed to hit. But that's one of
But
those positions that you could kind of finagle. You have a little bit of insight of where this guy isn't. He might be listed on a sheet as a cornerback, but he might not be drafted as one, and that could be the difference.
yeah, I mean, I would put money on that. Truthfully,
Yeah,
just
and then
odds it hits, like cool, you make a
yeah,
little bit of
yeah.
money.
Exactly. So I did want to. We kind of talked about Philly. I'm going to move over to the NFC East. We kind of talked about Philly. All of it's plus money. Obviously, Kelsey retired, so offensive lineman could be a thing. They do need a cornerback. They just got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back, so I'm not. But they have an old cornerback room. I think we've given them a cornerback in our past mocks, so that's a good spot. Defensive line, I'm not necessarily sure. They've been drafting a lot of those guys. They like to do the whole thing where they stockpile their talent. So when guys retire or move on, they already have guys in place to take over. My thing here is what I want to talk about was wide receiver. we alluded to it earlier. I think this is what you were talking about as well. But AJ Brown recently, he did the whole kind of quote unquote diva thing, but I don't know what's going on, so I don't want to call him a diva because it could be, for real. He scrubbed his Instagram. I think he scrubbed his Twitter too. Nothing Philadelphia related. He recently followed, I forget which two New England Patriots players, but he recently followed two New England Patriot player. And the kicker with that is he changed his, I think, Instagram profile, if I'm remembering right, to Tom Brady in a Patriots uniform. So there was a lot of that talk about him and Jalen Hurts butting heads last year, and they kind of squashed it into the playoffs. They lost, didn't really seem very squashed. They kind of reconciled over the summer, but it was kind of, to me, it seemed like all show. It seemed like they were just kind of like trying to make it, make it seem like everything's okay. But I just truthfully don't think that everything's okay in that locker room. There was rumors that they could look to trade AJ Brown, so this is that spot that I was alluding to earlier. That it could be, that Amari Cooper to Cleveland. It could be that, my gosh, AJ Brown to Philadelphia. It could be that situation to where we see a wide receiver get moved on draft day, leaving Philadelphia at 22 in a prime spot to be able to take another wide receiver here. So at plus 2,200 with that logic, does that make any sense to you? Like, just to sprinkle on a little bit, because if he does get moved,
I mean it does.
they're probably going
I
to
think
want to draft
wide
the first round.
receiver. Yeah, I mean if they move AJ, then they definitely need to do something with that wide receiver core. Because I like running your whole passing offense through Devontae and Goddard does not sound profitable. Like I don't know.
No.
But I can't even remember how it was last year off the top of my head. Like I know their passing offense was heavily criticized at multiple times or multiple points, but I can't remember if it was like how they performed with AJ, without AJ versus with Smith and without and such. I could easily see them moving Brown and taking receiver first round, but I could also see them moving Brown though, taking a corner first round, taking a Nate Wiggins or taking a something like that, and then coming back around in round 2 to grab a receiver, maybe even multiple receivers on day 2 or something like that. Like we talk about this kind of comparison a lot. I'm not saying this is a 1-to-1 thing, but think about they take Wiggins round 1 and they move AJ Brown for whatever the value is. Hypothetically, let's just say it's at least they get 1 day 2 pick at minimum. Say they go get Corley, who can play the slot for them. And I'm not saying he's AJ Brown, but there's a lot of similarities and some skill sets there. The slot and making things happen after the catch. And then maybe say go grab Keon Coleman in round 3 or something like that. Then all of a sudden you got a really refined route runner of Devontae Smith. You got a slot yak type and Corley that can make big plays happen. And then you got a big jump ball type of player for whatever, you think Keon Coleman can win jump balls. And so, I mean, all of a sudden you get kind of fleshed out wide receiver core without using a day 1 pick on them.
Yeah. I think what I would do here, don't want to move on quickly because we're getting about an hour already, is that's what I would do. I think it's either going to be a quarterback or wide receiver. So I would just, kind of split up 75% of what I would want to bet on a quarterback and 25 is at plus 2,200 at wide receiver, and just kind of hope that AJ does get moved within the next week. I mean, you're kind of calling your shot there. It's not very likely, obviously. However, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of smoke. So I think you're willing to do that. And, splitting up how much you're going to bet and putting such small amounts on it. If they do go corner and you win, it's going to cover it and you're going to come out a profit anyway. So that's what I personally was looking at here. I just like that whole narrative plus all the stuff that happened today with AJ Brown. I wanted to bring it up, especially once I saw a wide receiver still at 2,200. The other NFC East team, or NFC, wow, team I want to bring up is the Giants. Only reason I wanted to bring them up is because it's basically, do you think they would draft a quarterback?
Yeah.
like that early because we mocked it last time. We mocked them
Mhm.
drafting a quarterback. I think I kind of talked you into it, but or at least drafting a certain quarterback. But I mean, it's not the juiciest of odds, but it's really either wide receiver or quarterback here. And if you think that they're going to draft quarterback, I mean, you're almost getting double your like plus 175 here. For a quarterback, and I mean,
I
they're going to be in position to draft one unless quarterbacks really, really do go 1, 2, 3, 4,
I
or they
think
don't move up.
you're gonna. I think the Giants are gonna. It really depends on how things shake out.
Yeah,
I think we're pretty certain at this point, right, that like 1, 2, 3 is the three quarterbacks that we're thinking. I won't be shocked if like 4 and 5 are gonna be some combination of Marvin, Neighbors, and JJ. I that's what I really think. And then you get 6, which for the Giants, whatever one of those three that does not get taken at 4 and 5, I think that's who you see the Giants take. So I'm thinking the book is spot on with quarterback, wide receiver,
yeah.
truthfully.
I
Which is
think yeah, I
weird
do
that like
think
I'm
that's
saying that they could take JJ there, but I
yeah,
really do think they would.
yeah. I mean, I know that's your boy, at least over a couple of those, or I guess one other of those wide cornerbacks. Wow, I cannot talk today, but yeah, no, I definitely think that it's a possibility. I think they're kind of spot on. I just wanted to bring it up because it was a very good I guess, example of how sports companies know what they're doing. They're setting these lines, they're making money off of it. And it's basically if a quarterback happens to fall to them or they have the opportunity to trade up for probably cheap, I don't think they would trade too much, still having Daniel Jones with that much money, then they would do that. However, if whatever talks with New England most likely fall off and no one's trading up to them, and but they really want to trade back, which today they kind of released that they want to, whether or not again smoke screen season. This is the heaviest of the smoke screen that we're entering into, so you never know what's real and what's not, and sometimes we never will know. But if New England can't find a trade partner and they really desperately want to trade back, and New York goes, "Hey, I'll give you, you know, a day two, like 2 day 2 picks to move a couple slots," and I think they have to add a little bit more, obviously, but nothing. Say they're not going to willing to part with another round one pick, whether it's next year or the following year. We could see them move up for a quarterback if they have that chance to draft them. It's just you're banking on so much to happen that most likely it's going to be a wide receiver in this slot. Now, the flip side of that is it could also go quarterback, 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 Marvin Harrison, Blake Neighbors in this situation, leaving them with your choice of that fourth quarterback, which would probably be JJ McCarthy. Let's be real, and you probably have Minnesota and possibly Denver, ringing you off the hook to trade up. So, at first glance, if you really like quarterback, you're like, oh yeah, they might draft quarterback at 175, but like I think the odds should be a lot higher because if somehow it does go quarterback, 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 wide receiver, I think they're going to get an offer that they can't refuse to trade back to 11 or 12, maybe even 13 with Las Vegas, but I doubt it. But I think Minnesota and Denver might get a bidding war to move up to that number 6 spot, and it's going to be cheaper for them to move up to 6 than it would be for 2, 3, or 4. So that was just my thoughts on that one. That I kind of wanted to go over with the NFC East. So we'll look over at Tennessee's real quickly as well. The Titans, they're obviously heavily, heavily favored to draft. They're in a good position to it, most likely. If I guess the Chargers could draft him as well, but I don't think the Giants will. So they're favored for that Joe Alt position. However, like we talked about, they could also go wide receiver and at plus 350. It's actually a pretty nice price as opposed to what we were just talking about with the quarterback at 175. Like at 350, I think if Malik Neighbors falls to them at 7, I could see them
Oh yeah.
drafting Neighbors in
Oh
this
yeah.
situation. Like even if they had to
Definitely.
choose between Malik Neighbors and Joe Alt, like I could see them, sitting there
Yeah.
and debating these two guys. And it could happen. We
Yeah.
could see quarterback,
Yeah.
quarterback, quarterback, wide receiver, even possibly wide receiver. And then one of those two guys there and them just drafting whoever's available. So it's definitely the realm of possibility for them to draft a wide receiver.
Yes, it is. I think that's wide receiver would be what I would place money on here if I
Yeah.
having to.
I mean, you're not going to place it minus
Up
350 for Joe Alt. Let's be real.
Yeah, I mean, like Joe Alt's the
this is Joe Walt's, landing spot for all intents and purposes. But hypothetically, if he's, off the board, if the Chargers don't move and they want to tackle or something like that, why? I mean, like Neighbors is an easy pick, or potentially Romer. Shoot, if the current rumor is that Marv is tanking his stock or true or whatever, and Marv just so happens to get there.
That's
Like
not happening.
if they passed on Marv, I would be like completely shocked. Like so, especially knowing with how bad and I don't want to see how that wide receiver room has gone since. Even when AJ was there, like aside from AJ, like the wide receivers weren't great. I mean, I guess Corey Davis had a little bit of a year enough to get him paid by the Jets, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a spot where you might lay a little bit on wide receiver and just kind of hope the board falls that way. Again, it's kind of something out of there. It's out of their control, really. It's just what happens. They're not up for anyone. They know a guy they like at 7, assuming they like both those guys, of course, which I don't know why you wouldn't. But if they didn't, they would explore trading back, and that would be a situation like we talked about with Atlanta with the team trading up for Rome. So again, the draft is so fluid that we've seen one trade lead into another trade. We recently just saw a team trade back from 3 and then right back up to 5 or 6. So it's like there's so many things that can happen in the draft that we don't know. And the last team I wanted to bring up that just reminded me, I want to get your opinion. I talked about this kind of pattern with this, so I wanted to get your thoughts on San Francisco. We have offensive linemen minus 150. That's what I think they need the most. I think that's what they're going to draft. However, with the news about Brandon Ayuk possibly leaving, plus 300 for a wide receiver, and they kind of just love defensive linemen. They always have a defensive lineman. I know they have a solid defensive line, but they could always use more. And I could see at the end of that first round, if I don't think Battenberg is going to be there, and I don't think Latu or Verse is going to be there. But if one of those guys are there, I could see it. So I just want to get your thoughts if there would be anything with the 49ers before we wrap up.
I mean, offensive line, yeah, it's definitely like an easy thought process. But I mean, corner, like why corner's value here? I feel like off the top of my head, unless I'm just like misremembering what their depth chart looks like there. Like their starting corner, Tarvarius Ward, yeah, he's good. He's a solid corner. And then Ambry Thomas, like, okay, Rock Sin, like that's not keeping you from drafting anybody you love.
They had like a
Lenore's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
I mean, Lenore's pretty good, and Ambry Thomas is on, but like, this isn't. I mean, yeah, they did have a revolving door, yeah, but corner is not exactly like a talented, like strong suit for this roster. I mean, they're kind of deep at edge now, truthfully. Like, they signed Leonard Floyd, they got Drake Jackson. I mean, Drake Jackson's like not anything I'm relying on.
No, I forgot about Leonard
Floyd. They signed Gross Matos. They have Robert Beal Jr. Like, I don't know if Robert Beal Jr. is someone I would even rely on either, but I mean,
I think
he's an athletic freak at the least. Athletic freak, like,
yeah.
I mean, it's definitely like offensive line and then corner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at their wide receiver depth chart, like, I could definitely see them passing on wide receiver, to be honest. Like, even if they trade Ayuk, because you got Devo, Juwan Jennings. I mean, he's not a stud or anything. He had a great Super Bowl, but I mean, he's a solid role player there. And then they just took Ronnie Bell last year, and like Ronnie Bell is that type of guy that I feel like could be like useful for a Kyle Shanahan offense, or Kyle Shanahan specifically, but like not useful elsewhere. And there's always George Kittle.
Yeah. Also, just remember about Ronnie Bell. I don't think you were with me at the time, but I went for other people. I got married last year, and I decided to go have my bachelor party in Biloxi, Mississippi, just because they had a sports book and casino and resort. And Taylor was fortunate enough to come join me. And one of those days on Saturday or Sunday, I should say, I bet. Oh no, it was a Thursday night game. That's right. It was a Thursday night game with San Francisco, and I had bet Ronnie Bell to catch a touchdown at like plus 1,000, and he caught a touchdown. I think it was the game either Ayuk or Debo Samuel was hurt and he wasn't playing, so I was like, why not? And let's have some fun. I think it was the first day of my bachelor party, so I was like, let's have fun, and it hit. So it was good. It was very good. So Ronnie Bell will always be. I'll always be a fan of you if you're out there listening. But I'll wrap up this episode of the Empirical Scouting Podcast. It's kind of fun to dive into these odds. Like I said, I know you're not a gambler at all. I kind of dabble in it every now and then, just for fun, though. I don't bet huge amounts of money. I just kind of do it for fun if I have anything in there. So I just want to get your ideas on things because you gave me some insight on some of these like trade ideas and think situations that could happen, and then obviously comparing it to your ratings and your grades versus what either professionals have or what some of these sports books might think are having. And then we found some of the spots where it's like, the whole Penix thing, where if you think only 4 quarterbacks going to get drafted, you bet the under 4.5 at like plus 180. And then if you do think 5, it's most likely going to be Michael Penix. And even though you don't agree it should, but that's what sports books are telling us, and that's what the news is telling us, then you just go ahead and draft him in the first round at minus 130 versus the minus 200 that we saw. So it's kind of cool to get into that and kind of like see those different situations happen and kind of play them out verbally. And I'm excited to go ahead and do a final mock draft here in the next few days as well. Kind of predictive mock draft to see how close we can get. But go ahead and follow us on all social media platforms at empirical_scout. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. And go ahead and click the like and subscribe buttons below. And for Taylor, I'm Taylor, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.